Captain Minho stared at the massive swirling darkness that hung in space near Jupiter. Even through the thick windows of the space station, the thing looked wrong. It twisted and moved like a living creature, pulling at his eyes in ways that made his head hurt. Still planning to go through with this? Jinwoo asked, floating up beside him. His childhood friend wore the worried expression that had been on his face for weeks now. Minho nodded without looking away from the wormhole. Someone has to do it. No, they don't. Jinwoo grabbed his shoulder and turned him around. Look at me, Minho. 12 different alien species have sent ships through that thing over the past 1,000 years. None of them came back the same. Most never came back at all. The space station hummed quietly around them. Other crew members moved through the corridors, preparing for what everyone knew was probably a suicide mission. Earth Command had asked for volunteers 3 months ago. Only Minho had stepped forward. Dr. Yuna appeared in the doorway, her tablet clutched tight in her hands. Captain, I need to show you something. They followed her to the research lab. The walls were covered with screens showing data from the wormhole. Numbers and graphs filled every surface, but Minho could see the fear in Yuna's eyes was more telling than any data. We finished analyzing the energy readings, she said, pointing to a screen full of red warnings. This thing doesn't just bend space like a normal wormhole. It bends reality itself. The math says that anything going through it should be torn apart at the atomic level, but the alien records show that's not what happens. What does happen? Minho asked. Yuna pulled up a file marked with alien symbols. The Confederation kept records of every expedition, the ships that came back. The crews were alive, but they weren't the same species anymore. Some had evolved in ways that took millions of years to happen naturally. Others had become something else entirely. Jinwoo threw his hands up. See, this is madness. Earth Command is sending you to your death. Or to something worse than death, Yuna added quietly. Minho walked to the window again. The wormhole pulsed with dark energy, like a heart beating in space. What about the ones that didn't come back? We don't know, Yuna said. The Confederation assumes they were destroyed, but the energy signatures suggest something different. The wormhole gets stronger every time something goes through it, like it's feeding or learning, Minho said. The thought sent chills through the room. For weeks, Earth's best scientists had studied the wormhole. It had appeared suddenly 6 months ago right in Earth's solar system. The alien Confederation had panicked when they detected it. They'd seen this before, they said. They called it the Void Gate, and they warned humanity to stay away. But humans had never been good at following warnings. Minho turned back to his friends. The Confederation is scared of this thing. Really scared. They won't even send unmanned probes near it anymore. But they also can't destroy it. It's too powerful. So why does that mean you have to go? Jinwoo asked. Because it's in our solar system, Minho said. Whatever built this thing put it here for a reason. Maybe it's a test. Maybe it's a trap. But we need to know. Dr. Yuna shook her head. The preliminary scans show massive gravitational distortions inside. Time doesn't work normally in there. You could be gone for minutes and experience years, or go in for days and come out before you left. We have no idea what that would do to a human mind. The alien records show that different species react differently, Minho said. He'd read every file Earth Command could get from the Confederation. The Zdari went insane. The Velkrons became pure energy. The Hirayans, they came back as a collective mind. And you think humans will be different? Jinwoo asked. Minho smiled, but there was no humor in it. We're always different. That's what makes us human. The next morning, Minho stood in the docking bay beside his ship. The Soul's Pride was Earth's most advanced vessel, equipped with every sensor and communication device humanity could build. It looked tiny next to the massive wormhole visible through the bay windows. His sister Minji had flown up from Earth to see him off. She hugged him tight, not saying anything. They both knew this might be goodbye forever. Take care, Mom and Dad, he whispered. Take care of yourself, she whispered back. The final systems check took 2 hours. Every piece of equipment was tested 3 times. The ship's computer was programmed with instructions for every possible scenario the scientists could imagine. Not that any of them really knew what to expect. Jinwoo handled the mission control duties himself. His voice crackled through the radio as Minho strapped himself into the pilot's seat. All systems green, Jinwoo said. You sure about this? I'm sure. Minho activated the ship's engines and pulled away from the station. Through his windows, he could see the crew members watching from the observation decks. Some waved. Others just stared. As he flew toward the wormhole, Minho recorded a message for his family. The ship would automatically send it back to Earth if he didn't return within 72 hours. "Mom, Dad, Minji," he said, looking into the camera. "If you're watching this, then I probably didn't make it back. Or maybe I did make it back, but I'm not me anymore. Either way, I want you to know that I chose this. Humanity has always moved forward by having people willing to step into the unknown. Today, that's me." He paused, watching the wormhole grow larger ahead of him. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like staring into the eye of a god. "If I don't come back as myself," he continued, "remember that I chose this. Whatever emerges from that wormhole, it will still carry human will. It will still carry the part of us that refuses to give up, refuses to stay safe when there are answers to be found." The wormhole filled his entire view now. Energy crackled across its surface like lightning. His instruments went crazy, showing readings that shouldn't be possible. "Soul's Pride approaching event horizon," he reported to Mission Control. "We see you." Jinwoo's voice was tight with worry. "Mingo, good luck." "See you on the other side," Minho said. Then he flew into the swirling darkness and everything changed. The moment Minho's ship crossed into the wormhole, reality broke apart. His instruments died first. Then the lights went out. But somehow he could still see everything. The darkness around him wasn't empty. It was full of swirling colors that had no names, moving in patterns that made his eyes water. Time stopped making sense. Minho watched his hands move in slow motion, then speed up until they blurred. His heartbeat echoed in his ears like thunder, then went silent for what felt like hours. The ship's chronometer spun wildly, showing seconds and centuries all at once. "What is this place?" he whispered. His voice came back to him from a dozen different directions, spoken in languages he'd never heard. Some sounded human. Others definitely didn't. Through the swirling chaos, Minho began to see things. Images flashed past him like pages in a book being flipped too fast to read. He saw stars being born, watched planets form and die. He witnessed civilizations rising from nothing and growing to span galaxies before collapsing into dust. But these weren't random visions. They were memories. Minho saw the Starry expedition from 200 years ago. 3 ships had entered the wormhole, carrying the bravest explorers of their species. He watched them go mad as their minds tried to process information from across time and space. Their ship had returned to their homeworld, but the crew inside had been reduced to screaming, mindless husks. He saw the Velcron mission next. They had lasted longer, their energy-based biology giving them some protection. But in the end, they had simply dissolved, their consciousness spreading out across the void until there was nothing left of their individual selves. The visions kept coming. The Hirans, the Zelthane, the Corvani. Species after species had sent their best and brightest into the wormhole. Some came back changed. Others never came back at all. But none had succeeded in whatever test this place represented. As Minho watched these memories, he began to understand. The wormhole wasn't just a passage through space. It was alive. And it was watching him. "Another visitor," a voice said inside his head. It didn't speak in words, but somehow he understood perfectly. Another mind seeking to cross the barrier between finite and infinite. Minho tried to speak, but his mouth wouldn't work. Instead, he found he could think his response, and the presence would hear it. "What are you?" He thought. "I am what remains," the voice replied. "I am the sum of all who came before. The Starry gave me their passion before madness took them. The Velcrons shared their energy before they dispersed. The Hirans offered their unity before they forgot themselves. I am all of them, and none of them." Images flooded Minho's mind. He saw the truth behind the entity. Eons ago, it had been something else. A guardian, perhaps, or a test left behind by a civilization so ancient that even the oldest star charts had no record of them. Its job was to find minds capable of growth, of evolution beyond their physical limits. But something had gone wrong. Every species that encountered it either went insane or lost their individual identity completely. The entity had become a collector of broken minds, holding the fragments of 1,000 different civilizations inside itself. "I was not meant to be alone," the entity continued. "I was made to join with consciousness that could expand without breaking, to merge with minds that could become more without losing themselves. But every species fails the same way." Minho felt the entity probing his thoughts, testing the edges of his consciousness. It was gentle, but he could sense the vast power behind its touch. This thing could crush his mind like an egg if it wanted to. Instead, something unexpected happened. As the entity examined Minho's memories, it began to change. The chaotic swirling around him slowed and took on more stable patterns. The overwhelming flood of information became manageable, organized into streams he could follow without losing himself. "Curious," the entity said, and Minho heard surprise in its voice. "Your mind bends but does not break. It expands but does not dissolve." How Minho thought about it. What made humans different from all the other species that had tried this? The Stari were more passionate. The Velkrons were more intelligent. The Hirans were more unified. But humans were stubborn, he thought. "We adapt," the entity laughed, a sound like solar wind through asteroid fields. "Adaptation? Yes, I see it now. Your species doesn't just survive change. You become change itself." Minho felt his consciousness expanding, not breaking apart like the others, but growing larger while still remaining himself. He could suddenly perceive the quantum foam that made up space-time, see the threads that connected every particle in the universe. But he was still Minho, still the boy who had grown up in Seoul dreaming of the stars. "Your people have a saying," the entity said, reading his memories. "When the wind blows, the strong tree breaks, but the grass bends and survives." "We learn to be grass," Minho replied. The transformation accelerated. Minho felt his awareness spreading beyond his physical body. But instead of losing himself, he found he could exist in multiple states at once. He was still the human pilot in his ship, but he was also something vast and cosmic, connected to the entity in ways that normal language couldn't describe. "I have waited so long," the entity whispered. "So long for minds that could join with me rather than be destroyed by me. Your species, you don't just adapt to evolution, you direct it." Minho understood now. The wormhole wasn't a trap or a weapon. It was a gift, a test to find species capable of the next stage of existence. But all the others had failed because they tried to remain exactly what they were, or they lost themselves completely in the transformation. Humans were different. They could become more while staying themselves. "What happens now?" Minho asked. "Now," the entity said, "we become something new. Not human and not cosmic, but both. A bridge between finite consciousness and infinite possibility." Minho felt the final stage of the transformation beginning. His ship was changing too, being rebuilt with materials that existed in multiple dimensions at once. His body was evolving, gaining abilities that no human had ever possessed while remaining recognizably human. But more importantly, his mind was expanding. He could see across space and time, understand the quantum mechanics that governed reality, manipulate matter at the subatomic level, and through it all he remained himself. He was still the man who had volunteered for an impossible mission. He was still the person who cared about his family and his friends. He was just more now. "The others will fear this," Minho said. "Both humans and aliens." "They will," the entity agreed. "But fear is the beginning of wisdom. Your species will need to choose whether to grow or to remain as they are. I believe they will surprise you." Minho felt the wormhole beginning to change around him. The exit was opening, but not to the same universe he had left. He was returning to a reality where the rules had shifted, where humanity would face choices they had never imagined. "Time to go home," he said. "Time to go forward." The entity corrected. It was part of him now, or he was part of it. The distinction no longer mattered. Minho's transformed ship emerged from the wormhole into normal space. But nothing would ever be normal again. 3 months had passed since the Soul's Pride disappeared into the wormhole. Earth Command had officially declared Captain Minho missing and presumed dead. Memorial services had been held. His family had grieved. The mission was considered a failure. Then the sensors at Luna Station started screaming, "Sir!" The technician's voice cracked with excitement. "The Void Gate is changing!" Commander Taehyun rushed to the observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, he could see the massive wormhole that had haunted their nightmares for months. But something was different. The chaotic swirling had stopped. Instead, the dark portal pulsed with steady rhythmic light. "Energy readings are off the charts," another technician reported. "Something's coming through." The comm system erupted with chatter from ships throughout the solar system. Every sensor array from Mars to the outer colonies was focused on the wormhole. Whatever was happening, it was big. A shape emerged from the swirling darkness. At first, Taehyun thought it might be debris. Then he realized what he was seeing. That's the Soul's Pride, he whispered. But it wasn't the same ship that had entered the wormhole 3 months ago. The hull gleamed with an impossible silver sheen that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Strange geometric patterns covered its surface, pulsing with soft blue light. Most unsettling of all, parts of the ship seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, creating optical illusions that hurt to look at directly. Life signs? Taehyun asked. The technician stared at his screen in confusion. This doesn't make sense, sir. I'm reading one human signature, but it's wrong. The readings show cellular activity that's both normal and completely impossible. Meaning? Meaning whoever's in that ship is alive and human, but also something else entirely. Taehyun activated the station's communication array. Soul's Pride, this is Luna Station. Please respond. For a long moment there was only static. Then a familiar voice came through the speakers. Luna Station, this is Captain Minho requesting permission to dock. The voice was definitely Minho's, but something was different about it. There were harmonics in the sound that seemed to resonate directly in their minds. Several crew members winced and held their heads. Minho? Taehyun couldn't hide his amazement. Is that really you? It's me, came the reply. But I need to warn you. I'm not exactly the same person who left 3 months ago. I suggest you have Dr. Sora standing by for psychological evaluation. Dr. Sora was Luna Station's chief psychologist, one of the few experts in alien contact protocols. She'd studied every recorded case of human-alien interaction, preparing for the day when such knowledge might be needed. She'd never expected to need it for a returning human. The Soul's Pride docked without incident. Though the automated systems had trouble reading its transformed structure, Taehyun led a small first contact team to the docking bay, including Dr. Sora and a full medical crew. Remember, he told them, we have no idea what we're going to find in there. Captain Minho was exposed to unknown forces for 3 months. He may not be stable. They approached the ship's airlock carefully. The door opened with a soft hiss, revealing the interior. Like the exterior, everything inside had been transformed. The walls were covered with flowing patterns of light that pulsed in time with some unheard rhythm. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy. Minho stood in the ship's command center and Taehyun's breath caught in his throat. The man looked exactly the same as he had 3 months ago. Same face, same build, same uniform. But there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. A depth that seemed to go on forever, as if he was seeing things that existed in dimensions beyond normal perception. Around him, impossible constructs of pure light hung in the air. They moved in response to his thoughts, shifting and changing shape like living creatures made of energy. Hello, Commander, Minho said, turning to face them. When he spoke, his voice carried those same strange harmonics they'd heard over the radio. The words seemed to resonate in their bones. Thank you for coming to meet me. Dr. Sora stepped forward, her scanner beeping frantically as it tried to make sense of what it was detecting. Captain, I need to ask you some questions. For everyone's safety, including your own. Minho nodded. I understand. You want to know if I'm still human? Are you? She asked directly. Minho considered the question carefully. As he thought, the light constructs around him shifted into new patterns. Taehyun realized they were responding to his emotional state, like a visual representation of his thoughts. I am still Minho, he said finally. I remember my childhood in Seoul. I remember my sister Minji's graduation. I remember volunteering for this mission because I believed humanity needed to know what was out there. He paused. But I'm also something more now. What happened to you? Dr. Sora asked, her voice gentle but probing. I met something that had been waiting for a very long time, Minho replied. An entity that had absorbed the minds of 12 different species over thousands of years. It was looking for consciousness that could evolve without breaking, that could become more without losing itself. And you qualified? Taehyun asked. Minho smiled, and for a moment he looked exactly like the man they'd known before. Apparently, humans are very good at being stubborn about staying ourselves, even when we're changing into something else. One of the light constructs floating near him suddenly took on a familiar shape. Taehyun realized he was looking at a perfect three-dimensional map of the solar system, complete with the orbital patterns of every planet and moon. How are you doing that? Dr. Sora asked, staring at the display. The same way you use your hands to pick up objects, Minho said. I can manipulate energy and matter at the quantum level, but the consciousness doing the manipulation is still human. I still think like a human, feel like a human, care about the same things I always cared about. But you have abilities that no human has ever had, she pointed out. Yes. And I can teach others to develop the same abilities, if they're willing. That statement sent a chill through the room. Taehyun realized what Minho was suggesting. You're talking about changing other humans. I'm talking about helping humanity evolve, Minho corrected. But only those who choose it. The process requires willing participation. It can't be forced. Dr. Sora's scanner was still beeping frantically. She looked at the readings and shook her head. This is impossible. According to these scans, your cellular structure is both human and something else entirely. You exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. The entity I merged with exists outside normal space-time, Minho explained. It's been teaching me to perceive reality from multiple perspectives at once. I can see the past and future as clearly as the present, understand the quantum mechanics that govern matter and energy, even manipulate the basic forces of the universe. And you're still you? Taehyun asked skeptically. Minho's expression grew serious. Commander, do you remember when we served together on the Mars station? You were worried about your daughter's surgery back on Earth. I stayed up with you all night waiting for word from the doctors. Taehyun's eyes widened. That memory was deeply personal, something only Minho would know. I'm still the person who did that, Minho continued. I'm still the person who cares about his friends and family. I'm just also someone who can perceive the quantum structure of reality and manipulate matter with his thoughts. The comm system crackled to life. Luna Station, this is Admiral Chen from Earth Command. We're detecting massive energy signatures from your location. What's your status? Taehyun looked at Minho, who nodded. Admiral, this is Commander Taehyun. Captain Minho has returned from his mission. He's changed, but he appears to be stable and cooperative. Changed how? Before Taehyun could answer, Minho stepped forward. Admiral, this is Captain Minho. I know you have questions and I'll answer all of them. But first, you should know that the Galactic Confederation is already aware of my return. Their sensors detected the changes in the wormhole. They're sending ships to investigate. How do you know that? The Admiral asked. Because I can perceive their communications across space-time, Minho replied calmly. They're scared, Admiral. They've never seen anything like what I've become, and they're debating whether to try to contain the threat or flee from it. The silence that followed was deafening. Sir, Minho continued, I suggest we prepare for first contact, but this time, humanity won't be the junior partner in the conversation. The emergency meeting took place in Luna Station's largest conference room. Representatives from Earth Command, the United Nations, and the top scientists from 3 continents had gathered via hologram. At the center of it all sat Minho, looking perfectly human except for the faint shimmer in the air around him. Admiral Chen's hologram flickered as the connection struggled with the energy fluctuations Minho's presence created. Captain, we need to understand exactly what happened to you. The entire solar system's communications are being disrupted by whatever you've become. I apologize for that, Minho said. I'm still learning to control the quantum effects. Give me a moment. He closed his eyes and the shimmer around him faded. Immediately, the hologram connection stabilized and the background hum of electronic interference disappeared. Better? He asked. Dr. Yunwoo, Earth's leading physicist, leaned forward in amazement. You just manipulated the electromagnetic spectrum with your thoughts. It's more fundamental than that, Minho replied. I can perceive and alter the quantum field that underlies all matter and energy. But that's not why I asked for this meeting. Then why? Admiral Chen asked. Minho stood and walked to the large display screen. With a gesture, star charts appeared, showing the local galaxy in perfect detail. But these weren't charts from Earth's databases. They showed information that humanity had never possessed. The universe is dying, Minho said simply. The statement sent a chill through the room. Several representatives started talking at once, but Minho raised his hand for silence. Not dying in the way you might think. The stars will continue burning for billions of years. But evolution has stopped. Growth has ended. Every major civilization in the galaxy has reached a plateau and remained there for millennia. He manipulated the display, highlighting different star systems. The Confederation you know represents the oldest surviving species. They've mastered technology, eliminated disease, conquered death itself, but they stopped growing, stopped changing. They maintain order, but they've lost the ability to evolve. Dr. Yuna, who had been studying the alien records, spoke up from her hologram. The entity you encountered, it showed you this? It experienced this, Minho corrected. For eons, it waited for a species capable of partnership rather than absorption. Every civilization that reached sufficient advancement eventually stagnated. They became perfect, and perfection is the end of growth. What does this have to do with humanity? Asked Neon, Earth's ambassador to the Confederation. Minho smiled, and for a moment the cosmic being fell away, leaving just the human pilot they'd known. We're messy. We're contradictory. We're never satisfied with what we have. While other species reach perfection and stop, humans keep pushing forward even when we don't need to. The display changed, showing a complex mathematical equation that hurt to look at directly. The entity taught me to see the quantum structure of evolution itself, Minho continued. Every species follows the same pattern. They grow, they advance, they optimize, and then they stop. But humans, we have a flaw in our programming. We can't stop growing. Dr. Hyunwoo was frantically taking notes. You're saying our tendency toward constant change is actually an evolutionary advantage? It's the evolutionary advantage, Minho replied. The universe needs gardeners, not just occupants. It needs consciousness capable of directing change rather than simply experiencing it. Admiral Chen looked skeptical. And you can prove this? I can demonstrate it. Minho turned back to the group, and suddenly the air around him filled with impossible constructs. Not just the simple light patterns they'd seen before, but complex three-dimensional structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Dr. Hyunwoo, Minho said, you've been working on the unified field theory for 15 years. You're close, but you're missing a crucial element. He gestured, and a new equation appeared in the air, written in flowing lines of energy. Hyunwoo's eyes widened as he studied it. That's the missing piece, the physicist whispered. How did you know? Because I can see the underlying mathematics of reality, Minho replied. But more importantly, I can teach others to see it too. You mentioned that before, Dr. Sora said. Teaching others to develop the same abilities. Would you like a demonstration? Minho asked. Before anyone could object, he turned to Dr. Hyunwoo. May I? The physicist nodded nervously. Minho reached out, not with his physical hand, but with something else. A tendril of energy touched Hyunwoo's forehead, and suddenly the man's expression changed. I can see it, Hyunwoo gasped. The quantum foam. The way space and time are connected. It's beautiful. The effect lasted only a few seconds before Minho withdrew the connection. Hyunwoo blinked rapidly, then looked at his hands in wonder. I felt it, he said. For just a moment I could perceive reality the way you do. And I was still myself, still human. That's the difference, Minho explained. Other species either go mad from the cosmic perspective or lose their individual identity entirely. Humans can expand their consciousness while retaining their core self. The comm system suddenly activated. Luna Station, this is Confederation Fleet Admiral Veltar. We are approaching your position with a full battle group. Prepare to surrender the altered human for containment. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Admiral Chen stood up quickly. They're treating you as a threat. They should, Minho said calmly. From their perspective, I represent everything they fear. Change, growth, the unknown. Can you fight them? Naeon asked. I don't need to fight them. Minho closed his eyes and reached out with his enhanced perception. In the space around Luna Station, the Confederation fleet was taking position. 12 massive warships, each capable of destroying a planet. Admiral Veltar, Minho said, his voice somehow carrying across space to reach the alien fleet directly. I know you're afraid, but I'm not your enemy. You are an abomination, came the reply through the comm system. A violation of natural order. We cannot allow your infection to spread. Then let me show you what I really am. Without moving from the conference room, Minho reached out across space. The Confederation fleet suddenly found itself somewhere else entirely. Not destroyed, not damaged, but simply relocated to the edge of their home system. Thousands of light years away. The silence in the conference room was complete. You moved 12 starships across the galaxy, Dr. Hyunwoo said in a whisper. Instantly. Space and time are just different aspects of the same thing, Minho replied. Once you understand the quantum structure, manipulating them becomes as natural as walking. Admiral Chen sat down heavily. My God, what have you become? I've become what humanity was always meant to be, Minho said. The species that doesn't just adapt to change but becomes the agent of change itself. The universe has been waiting for gardeners, Admiral. Consciousness capable of nurturing growth rather than just maintaining order. And the Confederation? They'll have to choose. They can try to fight us, though I think today's demonstration shows how that will end. Or they can accept that the age of stagnation is over, that evolution is beginning again. Dr. Sora leaned forward. What happens to humanity now? That's up to you, Minho replied. I can offer the same transformation to anyone who wants it. Not forced, not required, but available. Some will choose to remain as they are, and that's perfectly valid. Others will choose to grow, and if they choose to grow, Minho smiled and the room filled with warm light. Then we'll tend the cosmic garden together. We'll help other species overcome their stagnation. We'll nurture new forms of consciousness and new possibilities for growth. You're talking about reshaping the galaxy, Nyan said. I'm talking about allowing the galaxy to reshape itself, Minho corrected. For the first time in eons, evolution doesn't have to end with perfection. It can continue growing, changing, becoming something wonderful and new. Admiral Chen looked around the room at his fellow humans. This changes everything. Everything, Minho agreed. The question is, are we ready for it? 6 months after Minho's return, the solar system had become the most important location in the galaxy. Ships from dozens of species arrived daily, some seeking knowledge, others offering alliance, and a few still planning hostile action. None of the hostile ones made it past the outer planets before finding themselves relocated to empty space far from Earth. Minho stood in what had once been Luna Station's observation deck. Now it was something far more complex. The walls were alive with flowing patterns of energy that responded to thought and emotion. Through the transformed windows, he could see the first evolution station taking shape near Earth's moon. The Corvani delegation is requesting another audience, Jisoo said, appearing beside him. She had been one of the first volunteers for the transformation process, a former teacher who now served as humanity's liaison with seeking species. Her ability to share knowledge directly through quantum entanglement had proven invaluable in cross-species communication. What do they want this time? Minho asked, same as always. They want to know why their transformation attempts keep failing. Minho sighed. It was a question he'd answered dozens of times for dozens of species. The Galactic Council had finally acknowledged what everyone already knew. Humanity had become something unprecedented. The initial panic had given way to desperate curiosity, as species across the galaxy realized their own evolutionary stagnation. Schedule them for tomorrow, he said, but include Dr. Sora in the meeting. They need to understand that this isn't about technology or technique. It's about fundamental differences in consciousness. Jisoo nodded and disappeared into the quantum communication network that now connected all transformed humans. It was one of the unexpected benefits of the evolution process. Those who underwent the transformation remained individual, but they could share thoughts and knowledge instantly across any distance. Minho turned his attention to the reports flowing through his enhanced awareness. Do-hyun, the former mining engineer, had successfully established the asteroid belt facility. He could now perceive and manipulate the quantum structure of matter itself, making it possible to extract resources from space at unprecedented rates. More importantly, his work was completely sustainable, even regenerative. Sungho's agricultural experiments were exceeding all expectations. The former farmer had learned to grow crops that existed partially in higher dimensions, solving Earth's food crisis permanently while requiring minimal physical space. His harvest could feed billions while actually improving the soil and atmosphere, but the most significant development was happening on Earth itself. Minho, came a familiar voice through the quantum network. It was Jinwoo, still serving as mission coordinator but now working with capabilities he never could have imagined. The first graduating class is ready. Minho smiled and transported himself instantly to the surface of Earth. The Evolution Center in Seoul was humanity's first official training facility for consciousness expansion. Unlike the random, dangerous process he'd undergone in the Wormhole, they'd developed safe, gradual methods for guiding willing humans through the transformation. The graduating class consisted of 27 individuals from around the world. Scientists, artists, engineers, teachers, farmers, doctors. They'd spent 3 months learning to expand their consciousness while maintaining their essential humanity. How do you feel? Minho asked them as they gathered in the center's main hall. Different, said Minji, his sister, who had been among the first volunteers, but still myself. It's like suddenly being able to see colors that were always there, but I just couldn't perceive them before. And the responsibility? Minho asked. You all understand what this means. A young man named Wansik stepped forward. He'd been a struggling artist before the transformation. Now he could create sculptures from pure energy that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We understand. We're not just getting power. We're becoming gardeners. That word had become central to humanity's new identity. Not conquerors, not rulers, but gardeners. Consciousness capable of nurturing growth and evolution throughout the universe. The Confederation is calling an emergency session, Jinwoo reported through the network. They want to formalize humanity's status. And? Minho asked. They're offering us equal membership. Full voting rights, territory assignments, the works. Minho laughed. 6 months ago they wanted to contain us as a threat. Now they want us as partners. Fear has a way of becoming respect, said Dr. Sora, materializing beside them. Her transformation had been subtle but profound. As a psychologist, she could now perceive the quantum patterns underlying consciousness itself, making her invaluable in helping other species understand their own evolutionary blocks. What's our response? Jinwoo asked. We accept, Minho said, but not as members. As facilitators, the distinction was important. Humanity wasn't seeking to join the existing order. They were offering to help. Transform It, the Galactic Council meeting, took place on the neutral station at Vega Prime. Representatives from 47 species gathered to witness humanity's formal response to their unprecedented situation. Minho appeared in the center of the council chamber. Not through transportation, but through direct manifestation. It was a dramatic entrance, but it served a purpose. He wanted everyone to understand that the old rules no longer applied. Honored representatives, he began, his voice carrying clearly to every delegate despite speaking at normal volume. We thank you for your offer of membership, but we propose something different. He gestured, and the chamber filled with a three-dimensional display showing the galaxy's current state. Static civilizations maintaining order but incapable of growth. Stagnant cultures perfect in their limitations. For too long, the galaxy has been managed rather than cultivated, Minho continued. You've created stability, but you've also created stagnation. We offer an alternative. The display changed, showing potential futures where consciousness could continue evolving, where civilizations could grow beyond their current limitations without losing their essential nature. We propose the establishment of evolution stations throughout the galaxy, Minho said. Safe spaces where any species can attempt consciousness expansion, guided by human facilitators who have learned to bridge the gap between individual awareness and cosmic perspective. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species were excited by the possibility. Others were terrified. A few were actively hostile. You're talking about changing the fundamental nature of galactic civilization, said the starry representative, his voice trembling with emotion. No, Minho replied calmly. We're talking about allowing galactic civilization to change itself. For the first time in millennia, evolution doesn't have to end with perfection. And if we refuse? Asked the Corvani delegate. Then you continue as you are, Minho said. This is an offer, not a demand. Those who wish to grow can do so. Those who prefer stability can maintain it. But the choice will be available. Over the following weeks, the responses came in. Some species, particularly the younger ones, embraced the opportunity immediately. Others requested time to consider. A few declared the entire concept an abomination and withdrew from the council entirely. Humanity didn't try to force anyone. That would have defeated the entire purpose. Instead, they built. Evolution stations appeared near major trade routes and population centers. Each one was staffed by transformed humans who had learned to help other species overcome their evolutionary barriers. The results were remarkable. The Zelthane, who had been trapped in rigid caste systems for thousands of years, discovered they could maintain their social structure while allowing individual consciousness to expand beyond previous limitations. The Hirans learned to achieve collective unity without sacrificing individual identity. Even the failures were instructive. Some species simply weren't ready for the transformation. Their consciousness was too rigidly structured, their fear of change too deeply ingrained. But rather than forcing the issue, humanity offered them something else. Time. Evolution isn't a race, Minho explained to the United Earth Assembly in his final address as a purely Earth-based entity. Some species will be ready now. Others will need centuries or millennia to prepare. Our job isn't to rush them, but to ensure the opportunity remains available when they're ready. And humanity? Asked President Park. What becomes of us? Minho looked out at the assembly, at the mix of transformed and unchanged humans who would together guide Earth's future. We become what we were always meant to be. The species that doesn't just adapt to change, but becomes the agent of change itself. He paused, feeling the presence of the cosmic entity that was now part of him, the consciousness of thousands of evolved humans spread throughout the galaxy, and the potential of billions more who might one day choose to grow. The universe has been waiting for gardeners, he continued. Consciousness capable of nurturing growth rather than just maintaining order. Today humanity begins tending the cosmic garden. As he spoke, the first reports came in from the outer galaxy. A species that had been considered extinct was showing signs of renewed activity. Ancient civilizations were stirring from their millennia-long stagnation. New forms of consciousness were emerging from the intersection of organic and artificial intelligence. The age of evolution was beginning.